I bought a new computer last week with the intention of making YouTube videos for my old podcast, Dr. Ice Cream. And I was really drawn to spend all this money and buy the computer. And only a few days into doing it, I was like, this something about this just isn't quite feeling right. And little did I know, I think the reason I was meant to get the computer and go down this path was for perhaps an entirely different reason. Because since that happened, something has happened to me. I don't know exactly what's happening. I guess some people would call it a spiritual awakening, even though I've been on and off a spiritual path, let's say, since I was 18, 19, which is over 20 years ago. So, it's been a very, very, in some ways, very, very slow awakening and slow path. Now we're 20 years into it, but something has just really shifted and changed the last few days. I went from being extremely dark and depressed just a week ago, just a few days ago, actually, in a really, really dark spot. Very, very, like, possibly the worst I've ever been, really in that stage where I just thought there's no point to being here. Very interesting choice of words there. No point to being here. Where else would I be? But I really felt like, oh, there's no point to be here. Why am I here? I may as well not be, as dark as that sounds. And in that moment, it was almost like that surrender moment that people talk about, where I was like, well, if I don't want to, it sounds so contradictory, but it's like, if I don't want to be here, I may as well be here. Where else? Where else is there to go? So I sort of had a surrender moment, and I can't remember the exact flow of what happened, but I feel like I meditated the same day, almost out of desperation in some ways. I rarely meditate, and the reason is that weird things always happen. I leave my I feel like I leave my body. That's been my experience in the past, that I feel like I just zoom out, and that to me has been always really scary. Well, it is. It's scary to leave your body. Obviously, it is. Maybe some people are not at all scared by that, but to me, like, anything supernatural is very scary. Leaving my body, f- being abducted, seeing ghosts, seeing spirits, hearing things. That to me is like so terrifying. It's very hard for me to push through. And so anytime in the past that I've like opened myself up to spirituality or spiritual teachings or anything like that at all, I just immediately feel like all channels are open. Whether you call it your third eye or just the opening up, I feel like everything comes in, and it's too scary for me to deal with. So I immediately shut it down. And so this day I meditated, and it took about 10 minutes since the meditation where the familiar thing happened, where my body got really, really, really warm and filled with energy. Not hot though, just like a very pleasant, warm feeling. And then I was like up in the stars. I was looking out at a galaxy, and yeah, I felt my body disintegrate. And the thing I did really learn from that meditation, I did get one very clear message from it, because the second I tried to grasp, so when I felt like my body disintegrated and I was just in the stars, like I was at one with the stars, but also looking at them, but I felt like I had no boundary to my physical body or self, spirit. But the second I tried to grasp that, if that makes sense, the second I tried to be like, oh, I want this feeling, what's going to happen? Ooh, 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 it went it went away, and I like just came back to earth. in every meaning of the word. I came back to earth, and I couldn't get back to that feeling, to that state again in that meditation. So I sort of gave up and turned it off. And I just had, then, it was everything's all good during the day when anytime I start reading about spirituality, thinking about it, doing spiritual practices, it's all fine during the day. When the sun's out during the day, great. I'm not scared. It's the second the sun goes down, the second that it's darkness around, that I start to think, oh no, what am I going to see? What's going to happen? In, my 20 years of being like only dipping my toes in a lot of the time, but anytime I do, I have seen things in the sky. I've heard things in my room, and then I just go, no, 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 go away. I don't want to do it. And I come back to the 3D, back to earth, and it all blocks out, it all calms down. So I just had this feeling after this meditation day. I was like, great, I've opened myself up again. Something's going to happen. And I was quite like scared to go to bed that night. And yeah, as I have my little routine, it's my OCD stuff that I'm really starting to work with, especially hopefully going down this path even more so. But my OCD is like, check every light switch, every light. It's exhausting. And I know that God doesn't want that for me. So I'm just hoping to be able to let go of that a bit more. But point being, it's very OCD, checking again. So I turned the lights off in all the bedrooms. And like, I feel like I know that I turned that light off because I'm so literally obsessive compulsive disorder about it. So I feel so logically that I turned that bedroom light off, but then when I got up to go to the toilet in the middle of the night, I saw the light coming out from underneath the door, and I just felt this shot, this jolt of terror going through my body, because I was like, I know I turned that light off, so why is it on? And I just had this, it just came to me like the fairies. The fairies are really screwing with me. I know that seems coming out of nowhere just then, because I haven't really explained, like, I think when people are drawn to spirituality, there's certain like things they get drawn to, and I believe it's all the same thing. The same, it's all coming from the same plane, but it's maybe coming from different dimensions, different levels of energy. But you know how you get drawn to certain things? Like some people might just be into God. You might just be into the universe. You might be into witch stuff. I'm not. For me, it's my point being. For me, it's fairies. When I was young, I could see fairies and talk to fairies, and and because they're so they're little trickers. And when I saw that light on underneath the door, I was like, it's the fairies. They're back. They're just like, I thought, oh, they're screwing with me. And I talked about the next day with my friend at brunch, and she's like, maybe screwing with you isn't the right term. I was like, yeah, I agree. Let's phrase that a bit more positively. They're like just letting me know that they're there, like quite literally turning the light on just to be like, yeah, we're here. But honestly, I was disturbed. I was like, one day, I'm like one day back into opening myself up spiritually, and I've already left my body, and a light's gone on. But it's scary in the middle of the night for a random light to just go on. And so I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I actually feel like I just want to shut it all down again, go back to earth, go back to 3D. And I looked up on Facebook. I can't even remember why, but I opened the Facebook app, and it said that in one of the new age shops in my town, there was a tarot reader, a card reader in that day. So I was like, let's see if this flows. I'm going to go in for a reading right now. We packed up our brunch, packed up our coffees, and then just went straight down to the shop and I was like, is I'm interested in reading. Is she here? She wasn't quite there yet, but I got my reading 2 hours later. And I said to her, this strange stuff is already happening. And she said, so the advice that the reading was quite good. It wasn't the best one I've ever had, but it was fine. But she gave me all these what she called protection things I can do, protect my energy. If you know anything about spirituality, you probably already know about protection spells. Putting your a but like bubbles of light, a wall of light around you, crystals. There's lots of things you can do. It didn't really resonate with me, and it never has because it's a little bit like the OCD stuff. Like when you have OCD, you get a fear, something that scares you, and so you perform an action to try to reassure yourself and get rid of that fear. But the action actually just makes it worse. Like you might temporarily feel a bit reassured. When I go and turn all the light switches off, I temporarily feel reassured, but then I just have to check again. And it actually just makes you feel more scared. The more actions you have to do to feel less scared actually just reinforces the fact that you're scared in the first place. And so these protection spells and her telling me about protecting my energy and protecting myself just sort of reinforced the fact that, yeah, there's something to be scared of. So it wasn't quite sitting right with me. And then luckily the next day I watched a YouTube video. Her name's Christina Lopes. She is quite well known on spiritual YouTube. But she had a video about this exact topic and she said to reframe it as in like you're just keeping your energy up, that your energy is so high that nothing else can overpower it, so you don't need to be scared. And she agreed with this thing that like if you say there's something to be scared of and something to be protected from, you're just reaffirming that there's something to be scared of, and so it's just going to get worse. So the reframing was, there's nothing that can hurt me. There's nothing to be scared of. And that sort of clicked something for me, regarding this fear of the entryway back into spiritual practices, that I was just going to open myself up to anything and be scared all the time. And yeah, so something has switched in my brain over the last few days where I've realized, you know, I don't need to be scared. There's nothing to be scared of in the spiritual realm. And that's why I've also started to think, wow, I could apply this to the material world as well. They coexist, they co-interact, and maybe not have to do all these rituals, these 3D earthly realm rituals either. So that's been my little learning lesson for this, first week back into dipping my toes into spirituality. And I think it's just a an amazing first lesson, because fear is what stops you from doing anything. Fear stops you in the real world, in the 3D reality, and it's obviously also stops people, because it stopped me from going into the spiritual realm as well. So it's been to start anything new, to start any journey, you do need to overcome that fear of the unknown. And so this has been a big breakthrough for me to go into this and not be scared, and to think, well, nothing out there can hurt me. So that's why it really feels like this time, this is a spiritual journey that I can actually go on, because I can actually start. So it's weird. I bought this computer to make YouTube videos on my other channel. And now when I look back at the content I was doing there, it feels a bit heavy. It feels a bit cynical, because I've always been a cynical girl. I've been all butterflies and lavender and pink and fluffy, but also a cynical girly. And that, so it just feels like, oh, my leg's gone to sleep. So it just feels like that wasn't the right path for me. That those YouTube videos I started doing even last week, I already feel evolved past that. And so I really actually feel far more drawn to share my spiritual journey, which I like have to say, I have to be very honest. I'm at the start. I may it's weird. I'm simultaneously 20 years into it, but also like right at the very start because I've never been able to get over this fear barrier before to really get even past, the starting line. So, this is my first video about the spiritual path. I've already got actually so much to say. I didn't even know what I was going to say in this video, and then I just talked for 16 minutes straight without even pausing or stopping. Things I've always had the ability to sort of like just channel things. Yeah, that's what I call it, channel things, or just be able to speak for an extended period of time when I get into the flow and the vibe. I've already got like so much to say. I've already had so many downloads in the last few days, and so much has already changed for me that I just really want to share it. But I just want to do this first video to speak about the fear of even getting started on the spiritual journey and just share a few things I've already learnt. If you want to follow me on my journey past the fear point and pushing on, even though it is scary, it's scary in so many ways. And I might get into that in more videos about the different ways it can be really scary. But this is just my intro. I think I'm going to call the channel Crystal Dawn because that's literally my name. It sounds like a made up spiritual name. My first name is Crystal and my middle name is Dawn. It's my real name. So I think that's what I'll call the channel. And I will hopefully upload, I'll upload another video really soon. So subscribe to follow along, and please, if you have any, because I'm not like fully cured of this fear. It's not like I just push past the first part of the fear. The first little, like the hardest part is starting. The hardest part is just getting past that very first amount of fear, but I still have it. I'm still like, oh, if an angel walked in behind me right now, that would be very terrifying. I can't say I'm not afraid at all. So if you've got any tips at all about not being afraid, I'd love to hear them. And until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.